Either you run the day or the day runs you was a quote spoken by Aaron Hernandez, a tight end for the New England Patriots who had just signed a $39 million extension with them. He was arrested and charged with murder less than a year after signing said extension. Hello, my name is Christian Sanford, and I'm doing a historical speech on the murder case of Aaron Hernandez, using different facts and opinions from CNN, Law and Order, and YouTube. I will be talking about this case and help you, maybe you could, so you can learn a little bit more. What we can learn about this case is no matter who you are, from pop star, rock star, superstar, athlete, anybody did, nobody's agreeing to the strong arm or the justice system. So let's discuss what's going to happen in this case. The first thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about the murder of Earlene Lloyd, and then we're going to talk about the arrest and trial, the investigation and the arrest of Aaron Hernandez, and then we're going to go into the trial and suicide of Mr. Hernandez. So let's talk about the first thing would be the murder of Earlene Lloyd, and I would like to talk about speculation. It started because Mr. Hernandez and Earlene Lloyd, they say, witnesses say, a disagreement a couple of days before. And it led into Hernandez calling two of his friends to come down from Boston, Massachusetts to help him commit this murder. And then when the murder was, right before the murder was committed, Mr. Hernandez and them, they rented a car and they drove up and got Mr. Earlene Lloyd. When Mr. Earlene Lloyd got in the car, he told his sister, he asked his sister who he's with. His sister said, who? He said, NFL, just so you know. And she was like, okay. People and sources say he probably just bragging because he was friends with Aaron Hernandez. A couple hours later, Mr. Earlene Lloyd was found dead. Later that day, a jogger from a high school who was a track star happened to just use the shortcut to find the body of Mr. Earlene Lloyd in an industrial park. And then he thinking he was just down and everything, he picks him up. Asks him, you okay? He wasn't okay. He was already dead. So let's discuss what happens next. Knowing that Mr. Hernandez is dead, the police are called and an investigation starts. And the suspicion started early on with Mr. Hernandez because they found a set of keys in Mr. Lloyd's pocket that belonged to a rented car. Well, that rented car was rented by Hernandez. And was rented by Hernandez. Was rented by Hernandez and rented by Hernandez, and they also, so when they found out the car was rented by Hernandez, they decided to go to his house and pay him a visit. Well, he was already showing signs that he had something to do with it because he wasn't talking. So he instantly became he was public enemy number one. When the news got out there and then it was getting investigated, the media scrutiny became real heavy with it. Everywhere he went, helicopters, police, news, everybody was following him, trying to figure out what was going on. He even told the New England Patriots owner that he had nothing to do with the murder. Nothing at all. That really changed because the breakthrough happened when they found a gun inside the rented car. When the car agency was cleaning that out, they found bullet casing and gun. Subsequently, they found video from a gas station near the murder scene that showed Aaron Hernandez buying that specific gun, which is Bubblicious, by the way, from the gas station, mixed in with the gun. His DNA was later found on the gun, to be exact. That led them to figure out, and they also realized that when they asked for his cell phone to see where it was at, he told them it was broken, but he gave it to him in pieces in a Ziploc bag. A little while after the murder happened, Aaron Hernandez was arrested at his own house and taken to the police station. When they found out he was arrested, 90 minutes later, the New England Patriots released him from his contract. Now let's go to the trial and suicide. The trial lasted about 4 months. It was a long trial. The problem was there was a lot of evidence against Hernandez. I mean, a lot. They had the cell phone damage. they had his sister putting Odin Lloyd with them. They actually had video surveillance showing when the car pulled up to him. They had the Hertz rental car with him at the time. And the two people that he called from Boston, Massachusetts to help him, they ended up turning state evidence against him. It wasn't looking too good for Mr. Hernandez. Now, the motive was never really explained, but they assumed it could be because there was a double murder that Hernandez was not really connected to yet, that people say that Odin Lloyd knew about, and he silenced him because he was talking too much. Because that's another reason why people think, there was another thing that Hernandez said before it happened, is you can't trust everybody. Well, Lloyd knew, also there's speculation that Lloyd knew that Mr. Hernandez was pursuing homosexual. Not many people knew that at the time, but that comes out later. The police and everything else went with the murder and everything. And Hernandez was found guilty of the murders and sentenced to life in prison with no parole. About 2 years later, Aaron Hernandez commits suicide in prison. Now, the reason for the suicide was never really stated, but he did leave letters to his wife, his lawyer, and his wife, lawyer, and his child. But the reason given for the suicide could be stated. At the time, there was a Massachusetts law that said if anybody is convicted of a crime and they're not used all their appeals by the time, and they die in prison before their appeals are all exhausted, they're technically a free person and are vindicated of the crime. What speculation says that Hernandez did that because he didn't. If he does that, his family gets all of his contract that was remaining, all his guarantees that go back to him. So there was speculation. A couple years later, the court did, when the case was vindicated, the court did reinstate it, so it made all this a moot point. But yes, after he died in prison from suicide, they decided to examine his brain for CTE. Studies show he had the worst version of CTE that they have ever seen since they started documenting. Now, granted, this case CTE has not been widely known until then. It only been a few years, and you can only study CTE after somebody has passed away. You can study their brain. So now I have talked about the Hernandez case. I talked about the murder of Odin Lloyd. I talked about the investigation and the trial of Mr. Hernandez. No, the investigation and arrest of Mr. Hernandez. And then I talked about the trial and suicide of Mr. Hernandez along with CTE. And I would like to say that through and through that this case really tells you that Mr. Hernandez was a fabulous tight end. Probably one of the best. If he continues and retires, he's probably one of the top 10 free tight ends of all time because he was great at running the ball too. But trials and tribulations in his career and life, including speculations of a double homicide and other crimes, led to me that no matter who you are, you're never going to be immune to the strong arm of the justice system, as you see here. Thank you.